guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Zoe from Zoe's Fancy Cakes, and today I'm going to be showing you how I make this Pennywise themed cake and also matching chocolate bars. Now, I went for a simple version for this cake. I did want to go 3D, but I thought keeping it simple might be a little bit better. And the chocolate bars actually taste so good. I know the white chocolate looks a bit weird, but they taste really, really good. So I'm going to start by making the buttercream. Now I've just got butter and icing sugar here together. Now it's not as white as I want it to be, so I'm going to add some white colour mill, which is a oil-based food colour, so it's quite good in chocolate and buttercream. We're going to use it in our chocolate later in the video as well. Now you can use a flavoured icing sugar as well if you want for your buttercream, guys. Entirely up to you. So I'm using a 6-inch cake. It's just a Victoria sponge that I've got here. I've cut the crusts off, or kind of the edges of each one, and I've got a 6-inch cake drum. So I'm doing the same in this video as I did in my last video. I don't know if you guys would have seen it. It would have been the Marie, the Disney cat cake one. So exactly the same thing, where we've layered up our cake and then we're just adding layers of buttercream, and you can also use some Calabo crisp pearls, which kind of like crunchy biscuit / cereal. Again, you will have seen me use these in the last video if you joined us for the last one. These are the dark chocolate ones, or you could use milk chocolate, or you could put something completely different in there. So these are just going to go between each of our sponge layers. And once that's done, we're going to cover the whole cake in a layer of buttercream. So once you've got a layer of buttercream all the way around the edge, this is our first layer, this is our crumb coke, so it can go in the fridge. We can let that cool down and then we'll bring it out and we'll give it a second layer. I'm using a Marble Effect cake drum. You can just use any cake drum. I just thought this saved us icing it because it had a nice pattern on. So I'm going to stick my cake that I've just taken out of the fridge onto there with a bit of buttercream. And we're going to give it a second coat now, so a slightly thicker coat in our buttercream. So let's start on the top. And I apologise, guys, you could probably hear my dog snoring really loudly in the background. So round the sides with a nice thick layer of buttercream, and we're just going to scrape any extra off with a tall scraper. Now get it as smooth as you can. I've not worried about neatening up the edge. It's going to go in the fridge. Now, while the cake's in the fridge, guys, I'm going to work on the chocolate bars. So I'm using the white Calabo chocolate. Now, it's a little bit whiter than the normal Calabo chocolate, this one. I'll put links below. But it's still not quite white enough, so I've added a little bit of white colour mill to that. So this is the same colour mill that we've put in the buttercream. Now, I've tempered my chocolate in the microwave, so I've melted it in the microwave. It does tell you on the packet the temperature that you're supposed to temper it to. I still haven't got hold of my thermometer. I can't find it, so I kind of guessed. I just melted it, so it might not be properly tempered. So I'm just going to squeeze it in the chocolate mould, and this is called, I think, snack bar mould. Tip it upside down, empty out all the extra, and then we're just going to scrape the edges a little bit. I'll link, again, the mould that I've used below the video, guys. I'm going to put a little bit of those crisp pearls. So we used these earlier in the cake for filling between the buttercream. We're going to have them matching in the actual chocolate bars, and they taste really nice and crispy inside the chocolate bars. So I'm not going to put too many in there, just a small amount in each little bit. We're going to need to fill it with some chocolate ganache as well. So to make your chocolate ganache, guys, you're going to want some double cream. Now, I'm using the Elmlea cream because it's got a longer shelf life even. And then I'm also using the milk chocolate Calabo. And I put in 100 grams of the cream to 300 grams of the milk chocolate. Now, you can use more or less chocolate compared to cream, depending on whether you want your ganache to be really thick or whether you want it to stay a little bit fluid and a little bit runny. Now, what I'm going to do is microwave the cream. So I've put the cream in a bowl. We're going to microwave that until the cream is warm. I'm going to add my milk chocolate pellets, or callets, I think they're called. You guys can let me know in the comments below what they're called. I call them chocolate drops, but I think they might be called callets. We're going to drop those into the cream, push them under so they stay kind of under the cream. So they're getting nice and warm. Give them 5 minutes, and then we'll give them a stir, and they should start to melt. So keep stirring them until they're fully melted. Now, it's a little bit runny to use straight away, so we'll give that maybe an hour to cool down. I don't want to put it in the fridge because it might set it a little bit too hard for what I want. Then we can start piping into our chocolate bars. So we're going to pipe a little bit in each one of these chocolate bars, and I didn't quite make enough to fill the whole mould. I'm missing one, like I just ran out of white chocolate. Just make sure the ganache isn't fully to the top, because if it is, you're going to struggle to get the white chocolate back on over the top. So we're filling it in with white chocolate just to seal the back of it. Now, if you don't put too much in, you shouldn't need to scrape them. Just give it a little bit of a tap to get rid of the air bubbles. If you go over the top, you put too much chocolate in, just give it a little scrape over so it's level with the top of the mould. So you can see once it's firmed up, guys, I can then trim off that little top kind of corner edge. We can now cover our cake in a layer of fondant. So I've just got some of the Renshaw's Extra Fondant on this one. And I've rolled it fairly thin, but it stretches a little bit thinner as I'm putting it on the cake as well. Now, if your cake has just come out the fridge, guys, it should be a little bit cold. It should start to get a little bit of condensation on it, and the fondant will then stick to it. So you shouldn't need to worry too much about adding something underneath. If your cake is not overly cold, you might find your buttercream's not firm enough to put the fondant over the top. You might even find you want to just leave it with buttercream and not add the fondant. It's up to you with which you prefer. But I like the buttercream underneath to be nice and firm. We're going to go over with fondant. I thought we'd go for fondant on this one because it's easier for me to paint the eye details on. And you'll see I'm just rubbing the top and the sides just to smooth it out because we want to get a little bit of a sharper edge on there. So the flexible smoothers that I'm using, they're really good for kind of getting out any little creases and bumps. And then also the harder smoothers that you can see me using there, I like to use those for kind of pushing them together towards my corner edge to get a nice sharp edge. It does take a little bit of practice, this bit, so don't worry if you don't get super sharp edges at first. It's fine. Once you've smoothed out the fondant on your cake, now I've printed off a little image that I want to use. I think it's the poster from it. And this is where I thought a nice simple cake design would look nice from this poster. So I'm just tracing it out. And I think I'm going to use some edible pens and also some powders for this. If you don't have the pens, you can just use edible powders. It's absolutely fine. We'll mix those into a paint, and we might even use some of them dry as well. So I'm going to take my paper, and I've got the pencil on the outside, so it's not going on the cake. And I'm just holding it gently against my cake. Be careful you don't press too hard with your fingers. You can use pins to attach it. Just make sure they are clean if they're going into your cake. And I'm just pressing with my Dresden tool to get those lines in. So they're kind of marked on there when we take that paper off. So I can just about see it. I don't know if it shows very well for you guys, but it gives me a rough outline. So I'm using my red powder, so the edible powder, and I've just mixed it with a bit of Rejuvenator Spirit, or you can use clear alcohol. And we're going to start painting on all the areas that are red. So I've not got an overly thin brush for this bit. Just make sure it's not watered down so much that it's dripping everywhere. Or if it is very watered down, that you've not got much in your paintbrush so that we're avoiding the dripping too much. You can use a thinner paintbrush if you want to try and paint on some little bloodshot eyes. Again, have a look at your image so you can see which areas need to be red. I've gone for the kind of the line that's above and below the eye, and then kind of reddening the eyeball a little bit. Now I'm swapping to a pen to draw on some details on the eyes. Again, if you prefer to use the powders and a paintbrush, that's absolutely fine to do that. So the pupils are going in. And then I'm just drawing all the darker areas to kind of align a little bit above the eye. And also the lower eyelid is quite dark. So let's go on with my pen for that. And then the eyelashes, I'm going to just kind of draw those on now. I apologize, guys, my hand is quite in the way when I did this. It was a difficult one for me to get a good camera angle of, I think, for this one. And let's go around the outer edge of the iris as well. And then let's put some little eyelashes on the bottom. Now, if you don't want the colour to go on too dark anywhere, we can swap and use a dry dust. So I've picked up a clean brush. It's nice and dry. And I'm using some of the black powder. So these are the edible powders. And we're just going to dust it on a little bit to kind of create those bags under the eyes. Really darkening the colour in the corners of the eyes and then bringing it out so it's slightly lighter as it comes down a bit. So we're going to give a really light dusting where the eyebrows are. Now it's important that you've barely got any colour in the brush when you do the eyebrow part. Otherwise they're just going to be too dark eyebrows. Now I'm using my yellow pen for the iris. And then we're going to try and repeat some of the same stuff on the other eye. And then any lines, wrinkles, creases that you want to do on and have them a little bit darker, you can go back over with the pen. Now, I did enjoy doing this one because there wasn't too much detail and it was actually fairly easy to do. I think because we traced the image to begin with. I apologise, guys, that noise you can hear in the background is my computer telling me that I've got emails. But yeah, and I like that we've used pens, the powders with Rejuvenator, so we're using it as a wet paint but also as a dry paint as well. And you can also blend the colours together. If you've got a bit of water or rejuvenator spirit on your brush, I can just gently rub that over sort of the black lines and blend that into the yellow a little bit. Now, I don't watch horror films. I have never watched this film, guys. I am rubbish with horror stuff. So I had to Google kind of what the rest of his face looks like. And I think these lines come down to his mouth, but our cake's not having a mouth, so I decided they're just going to come down to like what looks like some drips. Now, my chocolate bars have had plenty of time to set as well while I've been doing that. And the idea of these is to kind of paint them to match, but I did use the pen on them. It didn't work as well on the chocolate as it did on the fondant, mainly because of like the oils in the chocolate. The pen, I mean, it went on, it just didn't set as nicely as I would have liked. The powdered colours with Rejuvenator Spirit sat on there just fine. Then I decided it would be a little bit quicker if I just painted some blood drips on a lot of the bars. So instead of having them all exactly the same, most of them are just going to be blood drips. And then we'll just do 2 with the eyes on. For the eyes, just really repeating that process that we did on the cake itself. If you struggled with the eyes, you might find that actually you don't want to have any eyes on any of the chocolate bars and you might just want to keep them on the cake itself. You'll see one of my eyes is much smaller than the other one. The eyes were also quite a bit smaller on the chocolate bars and the cake, so they were actually a bit more fiddly. I don't do enough painting, I don't think, for this, or to find this easy. But I'm fairly happy with them. I think, you know, they match the cake, even though I have 2 eyes at different heights and slightly different sizes, but that's okay. And I'm just going to show you inside of one of these chocolate bars. Now, guys, I can tell you these actually tasted really good. I know they don't look overly fancy in the middle, but that milk chocolate ganache with those crisp pearls and then white chocolate on the outside, they were really good. In fact, my dad ate most of them. My dad eats most of the things that I make on the videos, but he did say I could definitely make more of those for him. So that's the Pennywise cake, guys. If you want to see me make Pennywise in a 3D cake as well, please do let me know in the comments below. I realise I don't have a lot of time left now before Halloween, so if you want to see more Halloween videos, guys, leave me your suggestions below. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.